Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. You may be a genius, but you can't make it on your own. That's our message for the first half of WowBiz Nebraska today. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I want to talk to you today about partnerships, strategic alliances, joint ventures, cross promotions, coming together at a business and a strategic level to make 1 and 1 equal 3. Speaking about 1 and 1 equaling 3, it's a great segue. Bruce Arendt here, great to have you.
That was smooth.
Yeah, thank you again. And we missed you in the last show, so I'm so glad to have you back.
Thank you.
You bet, my pleasure. And I'm eager to visit with you about bringing companies together, either temporarily or somewhat permanently.
Okay.
And what is the purpose and the value of that? Because I think in the small business sector, not much is happening there. In the large businesses, we see it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So when this topic comes to mind, have you ever been approached or approached anybody else and say, I would like to visit about it, some kind of a synergistic business relationship?
I've been approached in the corporate world as part of a company that we did strategic alliances.
Okay.
Before.
Excellent.
So,
and how did that work out, by the way?
Very well.
Yeah?
Very well. Yeah, it actually did. And but it's a real process because you've got two cultures that you have to try to merge and work together and everything. But, the bigger picture was it was a good thing to do.
Now, was it mostly about increasing sales revenues for both of you, or was it about decreasing costs for both of you?
I would say mostly about sales to new markets.
Yeah. I think that probably is maybe 40 to 50% of the rationale in most cases.
Right.
Companies kind of get going and they kind of get blocked into one market segment, and they know there's growth out there.
Right.
But they don't quite know how to go after it.
And it would be expensive to try to go after those new segments yourself. I mean, you could do it, but it would be a whole different type of an expense and different type of process. But if you can partner with somebody who's already there, then that helps.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The cost of
sense.
Advertising and more sales reps and trade shows and stuff, that can eat up all the profit. Even if you're successful, it could eat up the profits for the first 2-3 years.
Right, exactly.
So, but what would you guess, and this is not an easy thing, goes into the chemistry that creates a successful alliance or partnership? What considerations, would go through your mind? Because this is a tough deal.
You'd have to. I think the primary thing is compatibility of the two businesses. Are they a yin and a yang? I mean, are they going to complement one another?
Right. Right. That's absolutely true. Trusting, obviously.
Trusting is huge.
Is the first thing.
If you can't trust your partner.
Yeah. And you have to kind of determine what it is that you're going to share, right? And another part is what constitutes success. What is really success here?
Yeah.
Because some people will they might be happy. We'll get a few calls as a result of knowing these guys. The other guys are over there going, that's not enough.
It could be a lot of work for not much gain.
It could be.
Yeah. If you don't do it with the right goals in mind. And you might have to kind of redistill things as you go along, because out of the chute, you might not know exactly how it's going to work or what you should be doing.
Exactly right. That's a great point. And the thing that I've had in my experience with these kinds of things is because people have different operating styles. I'll never forget, I read a whole lengthy thing about, and this goes back about a decade or so, about TCI, which is Telecommunications Inc., big telecommunications firm, and they were working with ATT. They formed a joint venture with ATT.
Okay.
Yeah, and the ATT, and so they would have meetings periodically, I think at least monthly, and send all their middle managers or whatever there and try to figure out how we doing on our projects. And AT&T had a very formal style. They wrote things up, everything, the problems to be distilled, and then the solution, et cetera. They just had a formal feeling about it. The TCI guys were kind of entrepreneurial road rangers. Shoot from the hip a little bit. Wealthy entrepreneurs.
Right.
Who like to walk into a meeting, kind of dominate the meeting, tell everybody what they should do, and say, let's go have a drink, right? And these two cultures and their respective CEOs had difficulty coming together around the process.
Yeah, it's kind of oil and water, really, on a lot of it.
Yeah, you know.
But how did that end up?
It didn't end up well. They had to, they couldn't get along, you know, and they couldn't really cooperate. TCI expected to get an email back or a phone call back within a day of leaving a message. AT&T guys are like, oh, no. You send us a letter, we have a committee meeting, and then maybe 2 weeks we'll get back to you. Well, you can't operate like that. So anyway, that's also a very interesting piece. Now, lately, there's some big companies that are doing a lot of things. Mm-hmm. One of them would be Ford and Eddie Bauer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, so they licensed, as it turned out, Ford licensed the utilization of the Eddie Bauer brand.
Right.
I think they got their designers kind of involved in the development of a luxury SUV. One of them, kind of an outdoorsy, upscale feel to it. You know.
So the look of the interior reflected kind of the vibe of the Eddie Bauer line.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Maybe certain types of trim or finishing on the leather and things like that.
Right.
And kind of a Ralph Lauren look. Okay. You know, same type of deal. And so that worked synergistically because. If Ford would have come up with their own design like that, they could have pulled it off, but they wouldn't have had the specialness.
Well, there's the name recognition too. There's a lot of Eddie Bauer fans.
Oh man, people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
the question is, what's the value? How much do you pay on a percentage basis to Eddie Bauer?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how much more expensive is that? Do you price it? You know, to compensate for the licensing charges.
And what are the results? Are you selling that many more vehicles because of that name?
Right.
Can you quantify it?
That's right. Or maybe the marketing strategy, maybe it's just to throw it out there and kind of add a little, luster or cachet to the Ford brand.
Right.
And they don't really care that much how many units they end up selling.
But nobody else has that name in their line, so they set themselves apart.
It's a way to differentiate yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Now, there's another interesting thing from a functional point of view. We all know about Uber, and we know about Spotify, right? Okay. It's a competitor of Pandora, a pretty progressive music genome operator, you know. And, of course, the beauty of both Pandora and Spotify is personalization. Right? They get to know the kind of music you like. And I mix my jazz with Gregorian chants that's kind of what I do, and it's good, you know, little James Brown on the side.
Right.
Spotify seems to know. They understand. I don't know. But anyway, so Uber has cut a deal with Spotify, and they've got the receiver and so on, and somehow they can tell when somebody says, I want to be picked up by Uber and taken to the grocery store or whatever. Yeah. When you get in the vehicle, your favorite songs that are on Spotify come on.
That is awesome.
Isn't that great?
It really is. That's brilliant.
Now that is what I call experiential branding.
Yeah.
Because now you're actually feeling what the brand is. And the brand has become more. Now Spotify is an on-the-go kind of a situation, and Uber is much more customized, much more personalized. Like, we really get you, you know? I love it.
I wonder if the people writing realize what's going on.
Or if it's just a wonderful kismet.
Right? Playing my favorite song. Yeah.
That's really something. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the real issue, though, here in the state of Nebraska is the fact that, you know, I'm sure you know this. I'm going to spout out a few rough stats, okay? Don't hold me to them too tight. But about 70% of all the new jobs that are created in the state of Nebraska are with sole proprietors. 70%. Yeah. Small business is responsible for most job creation.
Has that gone back historically quite a ways, or is that fairly recent?
No, that's kind of a long-term trend.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Huh. And the 70% of all small businesses that start up every year are sole proprietors, one-person startups. Huh. Yeah. They may add subcontractors or have a few people around the office or whatever, but generally speaking, you know. So it's very interesting here, coming back to that quote I opened the show with Steve Ballmer, who's the former chairman of Microsoft, when he said, you may be a genius, but you can't make it on your own. Yeah. Can't be done. Now, do the 70% of the 70% across the entire state of Nebraska, do they know that? Do they believe that? And is their response, I got to get a partner? Or is it like, I don't want to even think about that?
They might have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, think about this. Yeah. Of those 70% that I just mentioned to you, I'm going to use another, 70% have problems with cash flow. 70% don't do that well. 30% do. 30% of all sole proprietors that are new or that have started up here in the state of Nebraska,
They're robust and they're...
yeah, they do
growing,
well.
yeah. Okay.
They do well. But 70% don't. They struggle to make cash flow, debt, and all that other stuff. So you would think that you could make a good pitch about the wisdom of trying a joint venture, some form of partnership, you know? And I guess I would think about it this way. You know, there's got to be a way. I mean, joint ventures are not the same thing as a strategic alliance. Strategic alliances are not the same as a cross-promotion.
Right.
Right. So what would you think? Where would you begin? Where would you say, okay, there's a couple of people out there that said they would be open to working with me. They're not quite sure how to do it or whatever. What would be your first proposal in terms of how do we do this?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd really want to know what their, and this is such an overused term, but their core values in terms of what they want to accomplish, who they want to serve, what are they all about?
Yeah.
I want to see if I even connect with that at that level,
Yeah.
because from there, that's kind of the foundation in my mind with business is why are you doing what you're doing? And it could be an entirely different group, but there might be a common denominator there in terms of what you both.
So melding of values is where you're
That's
thinking.
where I would start.
See, that's a very interesting thing. I think a lot of people would not start there.
Really?
I think a lot of people would say, I would do a cross promotion first because that's the least liability. That's the least risky. If the promotion didn't work out, we say goodbye.
Okay, well, I
you see what I'm getting at there?
Yeah, I think I was thinking in terms of my very, very first steps, but yes, cross promotion
would be a way to start.
Yeah, at least you know.
See, if their customers like our stuff and
Right.
our customers like their stuff.
Right, yeah.
And again, you can get out of it after a 6 or 8 week period of time and move on.
You're not married.
You're not married.
Yeah.
So I think that would probably be a reasonable step forward. And then after that, what do you think after that? I'm thinking joint venture. So why don't we develop a product together? Or
co-branding a product.
Co-branding,
possibly.
or maybe a website that we both own.
Because you've tested the water and you know that it's okay to get into that pond because you were able to cross-promote.
Yeah, exactly.
So now go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think a joint venture in that regard, having something tangible that we're going to create together.
Okay.
The problem is, you're busy, they're busy, pretty soon nothing gets done on the project.
Yeah.
You call up your partner and say, hey guys, I mean, you haven't done nothing. I don't see anything happening. Well, I haven't seen anything happening on your end.
Yeah.
Right, that can happen. All right, I'm just saying. I think these things can happen, and I tell you what, I would not let that kind of stuff get in the way because I think the upside is sufficiently high that it's worth tolerating their quirks and kind of going along with it.
Yeah. You'd have to both have the same target goal, though. You'd have to really be committed to. Here's what we want to achieve. Otherwise, it's just going to fall apart.
What if, I think you'd have to know their goal.
Oh, yeah.
Because their goal, and it might be different than your goal.
Yeah, but if it's complementary to your goal.
Complementary. Yeah, that's a different thing.
But it's,
Yeah, if he leans across or she leans across the table and says, what are you truly trying to get out of this? And you say, well, I'd like to reinforce my core users and make sure that they come back and use us 3 times a month instead of once a month. Well, that's okay. Mm-hmm. What are you trying to get out of it? Well, I'm trying to get some prospecting and trial on people who don't even barely know us to just, step into the pond and try us once or twice.
Yeah.
Well, those are reasonable. I think those are reasonable.
Together.
Could be compatible and so on. Well, Bruce Arendt, this is a good conversation to have, because there's so many people I think that are looking for how do I get out of this box or this pattern that I'm in. I want to do better.
Probably 70%.
Maybe so. I used that number 3 times.
Right.
Can't go wrong.
All
right. Well, Mr. Bruce Arendt with Arendt Creative here in Omaha, Nebraska, you're an outstanding illustrator. You're an outstanding writer. You're, as my wife says, you do 2 things at one time there. And you have some award-winning books, and you work with the educational system here in Nebraska. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Arendt Creative, that's A-R-A-N, not E-R-R-A-N.
No, that's... Yeah,
that would be a different thing entirely.
Yeah, that occasionally happens.
You're making an error. No. ARANT.com or creative.com. All right.
Creative Group.